It's the kind of house they don't build anymore. A relic of a time when the world wasn't in such a hurry, when there was still time for a little charm and elegance. It has stood empty for a long while, and at the price, it is a bargain. For a growing young family, it is almost too good to be true.
What do you think?
I love it.
James Brolin, Margot Kidder, Rod Steiger in the Amityville Horror.
God's peace in this house.
Get out!
Hello?
Hello, Kathy? Father Delaney, there's something very important.
Mommy, I want to go home.
What do you want from us?
What's all going on? We have to do something.
I'm coming apart! Oh, Mother of God, I'm coming apart!
28 days after the Lutz family moved into their dream house, they were running for their lives. What happened to them is an experience in terror you will never forget, and you will believe in the Amityville Horror. From the best-selling book that made millions believe in the unbelievable, the Amityville Horror.
Hello, welcome to Movie Humpers. My name is Bob Sham.
My name is Angela.
This sounds your maybe dogs, and it is Halloween Hump Fest. Every fucking goddamn weekday, we're talking about a horror movie.
Is it wearing on you?
We've been in it deep. It's a lot. It's a lot of work, but we have a good time. It's your favorite time of the year.
Yes.
Watching so many horror movies, talking about so many horror movies. And we are in the next to last week. It's also like almost like 5 weeks in October this year. So we got a lot of horror to discuss. And this in our final of our Thursdays theme of True Threat Thursdays.
Allegedly.
Movies based on a true story, alleged. But I understand if some of these interpretations you might be a little skeptical about. And I might be the most skeptical about the story, the true story we're talking about today. But this story itself is very influential onto horror that would come later and books being written about it. And there's like a dozen things of this that just exist. One shittier than the next, as I understand it.
This movie, though, I think it shot really well. I think it's a little higher level of some of the other movies coming out at the time that were in the horror genre.
Sure, this is considered an independent movie, and the phenomenon of what happened at the Amityville house, and then the book that came after, written by Jay Anson, with help from the Lutzes who moved in.
It all happened so quickly.
We're talking about the Amityville Horror from 1979, directed by Stuart Rosenberg. His most infamous movie was like Cool Hand Luke. Written by Sanders Stern and based on the book by Jay Anson, starring James Brolin, Margot Kidder, Rod Steiger, Murray Hamilton, amongst others. Cinematography by Fred J. Konekamp. Tell us the story of the Amityville house, or at least before we get the Lutzes into it.
There was a family that lived in this house, the DeFeos. It was a father, mother, oldest son named Ronald. There was another girl who was 18, and I think the other 2 children were younger, or maybe 3 children. Ronald, one night, shot his whole family.
Murdered his whole family.
In their beds.
And then went down to a bar.
And just sat there until the cops came.
A year later, the house is sold to the Lutzes, who were informed of what happened in this house. And they got a good deal on it for the time, I guess, $80,000. I mean, this house is just so much. Even if you adjust for inflation of that price, houses are even more expensive than that now.
At the time, they said it would have been about $120,000, so they were getting a 30% discount.
Because some kid murdered his whole family in there. But this place is pretty swank. And the house...
It's a 3-level.
They shot this in New Jersey, and they built it to make it look like the actual house. And the house has this face, like a jack-o'-lantern look in an archway. You can see in the picture above me there. When you see images of the house, at first you're like, oh shit, did they actually shoot at the house? Like, no, they shot.
It does look different if you look up photos.
But there's like a boathouse on this motherfucker on a canal on Long Island. That's where Amityville is. And so the Lutzes, as we meet them in this movie, played by James Brolin and Margot Kidder, they move into the house. And then some weird shit starts to happen.
They move in with their 3 small children, Amy being the one who the most things happen to. Amy has an imaginary friend named Jody, who tells Amy to do things or not do things.
Yeah. And the dad is sick. He's pale. He seems like he's becoming unhinged.
People in town are telling him that he looks like the kid. They don't ever say the name Ronald DeFeo in this, but everyone in town knew who these kids were. These people, at least in the movie, they're from this town. They know what happened also. They just need a house. They just got married. He's the stepfather. So these are not his biological children. He's trying to integrate himself.
Rod Steiger plays this priest. Rod Steiger, a veteran actor, especially at this point. And this movie was him trying to make a comeback. He had just had open heart surgery. And so this movie, he was trying to take real seriously. And apparently it was a bone of contention because Margot Kidder was one of the most unserious people in the world and kind of just openly laughed at everything while she was making the movie. And in interviews for years, she just makes fun of this movie, how ridiculous and goofy it all was. But Rod Steiger playing this priest who goes into the house, and this is an account apparently in the Anson book that this priest went to the house to bless it, and then he, in the movie, gets coated in flies and a voice tells him to get out. And we notice that the priest character never actually is in any scenes with the Lutzes. He keeps trying to call, but there's static. Get out! Which is apparently in the Anson book as well. But Rod Steiger this is how you overact. This is how you do it because he builds. He has the chops. He has the presence. It's Rod Steiger is playing this like, I'm getting a fucking Academy Award.
I think it's bureaucratical bullshit! What do you think I am? I am not some pink-cheeked seminarian who doesn't know the difference between the supernatural and a bad clam. I am a trained psychotherapist. I went into that house, and what I saw there was real. What I felt there was real. And what I heard there was real.
He is one of the best parts in it, like the scenes that he's in and how he plays it. He is very entertaining. You were talking about, there are good shots in this movie. You mentioned that earlier. There's parts where the camera's tracking through rooms as they're walking through the house. And there's angles and stuff overhead. The movie actually, the cinematography here is actually pretty fucking good. And I think we get some really strong setup in the first part of the movie. But the thing that is the weakest, and I think it's because it's based upon this story, is the story itself, the writing of the story. And I feel like a lot of the smart shots and the attention to detail that we were getting at the beginning kind of flailed a little more at the end. It was like they started off real strong and were just it felt like they were just trying to get through it. I don't know what scenes are shot first. Often movies are shot not in the order in which you see them presented, but it did have this feeling like they were just trying to get it all done by the end of the movie.
This movie is in our True Threat Thursdays because the Lutzes were real people who really did live in this house. The DeFeos were real people who really were murdered. Ronald at some point said he heard voices in this house, and that's why he killed. He's told so many stories, though. You can't even really know what his motive was if he did it alone. There's even a story that his oldest sister helped him. It's so convoluted.
Well,
he's never...
The Lutzes themselves, and we can get more into there, like, they have their account of that they told to Jay Anson in the 70s, and then they'll be in interviews years later, the kids and everything, and then they're talking about, like, oh, they levitated, they had telekinesis. Like, shit gets way too muddy too quick. The parts that I know the movie embellished are because in the book, on their last night, they told Jay Anson, it's too scary. We can't talk about what happened on that last night. It's too fucking scary. They initially did not speak of it. So the movie, it's building certain things, like the Jody thing is made up, which is maybe alludes to maybe it was one of the victims or something. And then we see, which actually looks kind of cool, like these red eyes in the windows, like it's haunted by this evil spirit that seems to be like a warthog or a pig or some shit. It seems a little tacked on, like more to get more into the trope of it. But at least it was kind of something, but it's definitely different from the Anson book. But the Anson book does touch base on these ridiculous plot points where some guy from Salem who was cast out moved to Amityville, or like this tribe made their insane people live on this spot.
That is a real tribe that they reference in the movie, but I believe those people have said, no, fuck off, this has nothing to do with us. They did actually name a real tribe of people, but it's bullshit.
Yeah, it's total bullshit. And even hearing it in the movie, and to find out that was in the book, it's like, it just seems like they're trying to throw things against the wall so much to where you can't question, like, well, there's so much shit sticking to the wall, this must be true, right?
Was the portal to hell in the book?
No. I
thought that was a movie only. Which
wasn't even really a portal to hell. And then James Brolin breaks it open, and there's that lady there who's into the occult, who's scared away at first, but then comes back and is like way too into
sensitive.
Find a well. Is the passage to hell?
And then James Brolin breaks the stairwell.
It was just a room under the stairs. And it was dumb.
And he sees a reflection of himself because that's supposed to be... Now, the thing that I think probably was in the book is the shit that seems like nothing. You know what I'm saying? There's a point where the kid puts his hands on the windowsill and the window hits his hand and he's bleeding. And then they take him to the emergency room. And then they come there. There's this part where they're walking out of the emergency room, and they're like,
"George, are you awake? Isn't it kind of strange that none of the bones are broken in Greg's hand?"
It's crazy. He didn't break any bones in his hand.
Yeah, that is crazy.
That's crazy. Wow. Like, I mean, if he broke bones in his hands, then that would be physical evidence. But we're going to present this like the windowsill fell on his hand. Like, it is, there's something else, too, I'm trying to remember that was just very nothing.
What's the matter?
The money.
What money?
Money for the caterer, $1,500. I put it in this pocket.
Well, it must have fallen out. Come on now.
Well, it's not here.
The babysitter locked
in the closet.
Oh my God! I couldn't get out. The door closed and it locked, and I couldn't get out.
There's no lock on this door.
It wouldn't open.
The door that didn't have a lock on it. There's also something about the flies. The flies attack the priest at the beginning, but then they get the dad later on. Someone later was quoted as saying, they made it look ridiculous, but it was actually really scary. They embellished it to the point of ridiculousness.
The fly stuff?
Yeah.
The fly stuff was fine.
I thought the fly stuff was fine too, but that's what was pointed out as saying, like, that was a little ridiculous. Well, what about the blood red room hidden in the basement with oil in it?
Yeah, the toilet has like oil tar. I think that might have been a movie thing too, because that
He
played
falls
at the
in
end.
it at one point. There's
At the
no
end of
way
the
that part
movie-
was real. I just didn't know if Anson like added that in for.
I think that might be a movie thing, but
'Cause that's
yeah,
provable.
at the end, James Brolin he falls like he's going through hell, but he falls into the tar. It's weird, and then they run away. But I did like the sweet scene at the end where they go back for Harry. Harry the dog knows what's going on. He's trying to fight the devil through the whole movie, and people keep getting in his way. But I did like the scene at the end where James Brolin runs back and he grabs Harry and rescues him.
That is the most understandable. Go back into the house.
Apparently, in the 2004 Ryan Reynolds remake, he kills the dog.
Fuck Ryan Reynolds.
Yeah, we get a pretty thin, haunting movie here. There is some
A poltergeist movie.
Poltergeist came later. I think a lot of the comparisons were more towards The Exorcist, which came out before.
That's
for
true
years.
because they talk about demons and it's a possession.
And then The Shining was Stephen King published that in 1977. Kubrick comes out in 1981, and that's like the ultimate dad losing his mind and might kill his family movie. So that one overshadows it. It really does seem like if you're really into like so-called true haunts and stuff like that, then that's when the Amityville Horror comes up on your radar. But it does have a place in horror history, even though we're kind of pecking at it, and it does have its influence out there. And it does seem interesting that book comes out and then 2 years later Stephen King writes The Shining, you know? Yeah. I mean, the setting is different. Everything feels more isolated in that story, but yeah, it's like Stephen King just decided to do a better version of what he read in the Amityville book. It's also been pointed out by critics and Stephen King, who used to review movies at the time over the years, that this movie seems like a parallel for the pressures of home ownership and the financial issues that can arise from owning a home. And when you interpret it like that, it does actually make a lot of sense. That it reads a little better when you do think of it that way, instead of just on the surface haunting movie. Mm-hmm. And in that sense, it is clever. There is cleverness about this movie, but it's dealing with a story that I feel like is just exploitive bullshit.
I agree. This story, in reality, it feels as though maybe some people got creeped out in this house. I don't know. But they took advantage of a tragedy to make money. And it's gross. And no one who's ever lived there after the Lutzes has ever had a single problem. That no one was buried alive on that property or whatever the fuck. That's what made me think of Poltergeist, is the whole like burial ground.
I mean, a man with untreated mental illness murders his whole family. None of those family, and DeFore is rotting away in a prison. He's probably gone by now. DeFeo. None of that family is around to tell their story, to tell their life. No one is there to represent the actual tragedy, the true horror that occurred in this story. And the Lutzes, when they took it's noted that they took polygraphs and they passed them. It could be like a mass hysteria kind of event within there, but there's so much muddled here. And the fact that some defense attorneys involved in the actual murder case and attorneys through the Lutzes were involved in literary deals here. There's just so much shady bullshit. And of course, a polygraph is not admissible in court, because if you're a fucking liar, that's lying sociopath that convince yourself of your own lies, and you're being asked, and you're a kid who grew up there, and your dad's like telling you all this shit's going on, and your parents are just reiterating something, that's going to be, even if they never physically see anything, all that stuff on an emotional level is going to be as real to that kid as if that ever actually happened.
Absolutely. There's also, I do agree with you that it could have been a mass hysteria. There's so much also that went on that you just don't get into this movie. They did have people like the Warrens come in, and anytime you have a couple like the Warrens, who famously has been made famous by the what are those movies called?
The Conjuring.
The Conjuring,
which is
films.
a good movie, but I haven't seen
the
any of
first
the
one.
ones. Yeah.
But when you also have people like that in here, and yet people trying to interview you, people trying to get your story, it makes a better story if you build it up a little bit. And how long until you start believing what you said? Also, they could have been obsessed with these murders, just themselves.
Yeah.
So if the mom's talking about how, well, this is the room where the boy got shot in the head, and she thinks the kid didn't hear it, but the kid did hear it, and later she says, oh, my imaginary friend told me a kid got shot in here. Well, the kid's just trying to process some information that they are too young to deal with.
So yeah, I mentioned the Rod Steiger performance. That's my favorite performance of the movie. And then James Brolin, I thought he did a good job too. His character, very keyed in and focused, and like he's coming unraveled, and you think he's going to attack his family or whatever, but he manages to stop just because the Lutz really didn't kill the father Lutz. He had money to make. He didn't actually kill his whole family for the sake of a book. But Margot Kidder, she feels, when she's connecting to James Brolin's character, like their relationship quirks seem kind of nice, but she does seem to just kind of be floating through the movie more than anything. And this was the follow-up to Superman. Mm-hmm. And so imagine seeing Lois Lane in Superman, and then you get to see parts of her boobs here in Amityville Horror.
You do, yeah. There's a part where she's doing some ballet with her shirt open, and you get a real nice booty shot.
She dated Richard Pryor.
Really?
That didn't really surprise me that much, but I learned that fairly recently.
Huh.
And we've kind of given our thoughts on that. I don't think there's really much more to get into because, like I said, the story itself is just all very thin, and we summarized the parts that are outside of the novel, as far as I know. I did look for things that are specifically separate,
egregious,
but you kind of have to add some. So I don't blame the creative team here for adding to it, because based on the hauntings that are detailed that seem like they may have come from the book, you definitely need more. It just seems a little thin overall, despite some interesting camera work and some solid performances. It just falls apart into what feels just kind of goofy, truly. But I guess that's the Amityville Horror. What more to say about it from 1979? It made a lot of money. It did really well.
The most money that an independent film had made at that point, and it's still one of the highest grossing horror films, I believe.
Yeah, Halloween would come out a year later, but I don't think it made quite as much money as this, but it came pretty close. So we're going to give this 1 through 5 each combined for best out of 10. This one's a little tougher because there are high peaks and some low valleys in this movie. I do think that there is enough here to merit above average. And I do love that Rod Steiger performance. And I got to give it up to Koenigkamp's cinematography.
We didn't mention it, but it's award-winning soundtrack.
Right.
Also, the music is really great.
Yeah, the music here is really good too. So there is a lot of craft in this movie that does deserve to be pointed out. But the story itself fucking sucks, and it's based on some
lies,
some fucking bullshit, taking advantage of this poor goddamn family who aren't around to
and
tell their story.
mentally unstable man.
Yeah, this story has always pissed me off in a true crime sense and a ghost story sense. There's just always something that just feels particularly dirty about this particular story, and so that might come into it too. But to be fair, I'm gonna give it a solid 3. I think the craft does elevate it at least that much.
I'll match your 3.
6 out of 10. Check it out. It's a B-, right at the bottom of the B's at a 6. The Amityville Horror by Stuart Rosenberg, our True Threat Thursday final pick this month for Halloween on Fest from 1979, is in between the movies Taste the Blood of Dracula and the Jerry Lewis film The Ladies' Man. Excellent set on The Ladies' Man.
Which might be why it has this rating as well.
Yeah, I'm sitting there thinking that set was so great on The Ladies' Man that it seems like it should be higher. And then I remembered every other part of The Ladies' Man. Yeah. And the set is the reason why it hit the 6 at all.
Yeah.
But yeah, there you go. that's our last of our based on some true stories. Yeah, as you can tell, I'm a little mad about the exploitation around the Amityville Horror, but the movie has its place in horror history, and it must be noted. Check the show notes for links to other places to find us. We got some Friday Night Fiends tomorrow. I forget who's next.
It'll be good.
It should be good. And or not, we'll let you know. Like, subscribe, leave a comment, and let us know what you think of the whole Amityville Horror fiasco. Do you think it's real? Do you think it's a crock of shit? Are you extremely gullible, or do you have common sense? Let me know.
Happy Halloween.
We ask this through our Lord Jesus Christ, your Son. Give them strength of mind and body. Oh, Lord, I beg thee, give them strength in the name of our Lord Jesus Christ.